All right, so thanks for coming out, everyone. I'm Micah Friedman again. I haven't met you. Central Chapter Chair and the first presenter of 2024. So, tonight I'm going to talk about the graduate research that I'm working on right now. It's not finished, but hopefully it'll be finished in April. So, I can't talk about a bunch of like the finished product yet, but I'm talking about a lot of the process and all my field work I've done.
Right.
You hit the one that's closest
Okay.
to the door.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, my project is called A Floristic Analysis of Oklahoma County, a countywide checklist, floristic inventory, and a floristic quality assessment. And I will break down those words in a little bit, what they mean. There should be some seats. Yeah. So yeah, I am at University of Central Oklahoma. My advisor is Dr. Jenna Messick. She has spoke here before. And then on my advisory committee, which is like the people who approve my work and critique it and all that stuff, is Dr. Messick, Dr. Parks, and Dr. Chad King. Dr. King presented here like last year about his tree work. So he's a tree guy. So see if this thing works. Oh, wait, I'm pressing the wrong way. Okay. So like the three main questions I'm looking at with my research is what plants exist in Oklahoma County? Because we kind of have an idea, but nobody has done this research in a really long time. And how can we measure the quality of natural areas in Oklahoma County or anywhere else? And how has land use change affected the ecology of Oklahoma County? So just some background. When I was first learning about plants in Oklahoma, pretty much the only resource I could find was this guy, Dr. Dory McCoy, who put out a bunch of Oklahoma plant books, like 70s and 80s. And so like, that was kind of like a little bit around the beginning of the internet. So it was basically just finding these books at the library, and that was basically it. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I was hanging out with Dr. Bruce Smith, who some of y'all might know. He's the fern guy in Oklahoma. And he's also a science teacher. I'm a science teacher also, high school science teacher. But he's a science teacher in McLeod. And he's been teaching science there, I think, for over 40 years. The same class. And he's really big into plants. And he's like got the city to stop mowing this, and he's letting this go back to prairie. That's right behind the school. And then also behind the school is like a huge wooded area that he just takes students in all the time to learn about ecology and plants. But I was looking at his bookshelf, and he had a book by Doyle McCoy I'd never seen before. I was like, what book is this? And he was like, oh, that's his, I think it was his thesis or dissertation. And it was on Pontotoc County, and it was just the flora of that county. And him studying that. I didn't really know you could do that in a master's program. So like right away, I started researching how I could do that in a master's program. I was already kind of doing it, but I wanted to have more guidance, more mentors, and all that stuff. And another degree would be sweet. So yeah. So why study plants in Oklahoma County? Well, it's where I live. It's where I'm from. It's the easiest place for me to look at plants. Also, you get baseline floristic data. So you can use that for conservation, right? If you know it, you gotta know it's there in order to protect it. So conservation, and then I'm also just interested in the history and like documenting how the land's changed. So, and then why do I like plants? Well, just for overall science and ecology, they're really good biological indicators for ecological integrity. So it's a really good way to look at and study the ecology of an area based on what plants are there. It tells you a lot. I'm also just like entertainment. I just find it fun. Like it's always something to do. Whether you're just walking around and like right out here, there's always something to look at and kind of like think about. Also, like I'm watching a movie. Like it's always really interesting to see the plants, and that tells you a lot, like, what part of the world they're in, what climate, and it might not be the same as like where they say they are or something, And like it's just interesting. And then also like we use plants so much, right? So like of the top, this is an old statistic, but of the top 150 prescription drugs used in the United States, 118 are based on natural sources, and 74% of those are plants. 18% are fungi, 5% bacteria, 3% vertebrate. And then 9 of the top 10 drugs on the list are based on natural plant products. So like plants are like most medicine come from plants. Like aspirin originates from willow trees. Wild yam in Mexico is where the birth control pill comes from. Ephedrine, the decongestant, which is fortunately also in methamphetamine, comes from the ephedra genus, which we have one here that has ephedrine in it. So it's just fascinating. And that one that's here, like we don't really even know that much about. It's also called Mormon tea. But it's like definitely a stimulant. It definitely has ephedrine in it. Okay, so my study area for my project is Oklahoma County. This is just kind of a generic map of it. Oklahoma County is 2,708 square miles inside. Okay. You can kind of see the land. If you look really closely at this, you can see all the like grid, all the buildings, all that stuff. So you can tell there's a lot of land use change happening. Now I overlaid the ecoregions of Oklahoma County on this map, and this shows you the two main ecoregions. So ecoregion is just a group, like an area that has similar characteristics, ecological characteristics. So like on the west side of Oklahoma County, like there's Lake Huffner right there. That's the Central Great Plains. So it's a mix of tall grass and short grass vegetation. And this kind of follows I-35, this line. And then on the east side is the cross timbers ecoregion. And so that's dominated by blackjack, oak, and post oak. And that's a little more hilly, and it's less developed. I'm assuming because it's not the plains so much. You know, it's not as flat and easy to develop, right? There's not as many houses and stuff. Although they're doing it now more so. And then, so there's Lake Arcadia. This is Canadian River. And then like the southern end of is like I-240, Oklahoma County. North end is just like north of Edmond. Okay. So one part, this is kind of a small part of my research, is just figuring out an overall list, a checklist of all the plants that we think are here, or we know are here. So most of that work is going through a database called Torch, which documents all the plants that botanists have collected and submitted to University of Bavaria. So that's all digitized. You can see all those pictures of those specimens and the data that goes along with them. And so there's going to be, like Torch says, there's 1,548 species. And there's definitely like hundreds less than that. Because there's going to be like lots of misidentifications, mistakes, maybe plants, like subspecies or varieties that we don't classify as subspecies or varieties. So it might be more like, I don't know, 12, I haven't done it yet, but 1,200 maybe. I'll also go through iNaturalist to see if there's any new species that other people have documented that like the more university botanist people haven't documented. So on iNaturalist is an app that's super popular, citizen science app. And once I resisted it for a long time. Once I started using this, like blown away what you can do with it. So on iNaturalist, there's 17,000 plant observations. This is like months ago when I wrote that for Oklahoma County. And then there's, according to them, there's 1,159 species, individual species in this county. And then also I'll do some field work. I can go to the spots where people say they found certain plants that are questionable and see the plants are still there. Because if they're not there anymore, well, then you can't really say that plant exists in Oklahoma County anymore. And maybe there's a building there or something also. Like, because this has been, you know, herbarium records in Oklahoma date back to, well, definitely the early 1900s. I don't know what the oldest one is, but like 1920, 1930, there's starting to get a lot of them. And then statewide, there's 2,657 species. And this is just a invasive dwarf mouse deer, which I just put in as a really cool style, which is the reproductive part in the center right here. The flower, which is really interesting to me. That's a spiral kind of thing like that. So there has been pretty much one of the persons that I know of that's done like extensive plant work in Oklahoma County, and that's this guy, UT Waterfall. And this was his OU thesis, finished in 1942. So it was called the Spermatophyta of Oklahoma County, Oklahoma, and exclusive of the grasses, sedges, and rushes, which doesn't I realize why he did that, because those are the hardest plants to identify. And it's a really pain to try to figure out the differences in the grasses, sedges, and rushes. But his work is awesome. You can see all the stuff, like all of his herbarium sheets. I'm gonna go more about what an herbarium sheet is later, but they basically archive of plant records. And they're housed all over the country, his herbarium records. He seems like a pretty prolific botanist. And he focused on Oklahoma and Mexico. But and like he has tons of Oklahoma County plants. But one thing about his work is back then they didn't have GPS coordinates they used. And so it's kind of just a description. And sometimes these towns don't even exist anymore. It's kind of like 5 miles north of Oklahoma City. That's like, but like this one right here is it's a very tiny plant. Like this sheet is like 16 inches tall in person. So this plant's like, I don't know, inch or two long. It's Draba brachycarpa, probably not pronouncing it right. But he picked this one on dry sandy soil, Shepherd Golf Course, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I don't know why it says 3/8/17, but it was probably in the late 30s. And so I didn't really know what that was, but I know where Shepherd Mall is. And so that's like 5 blocks that way or something. Yeah. And so there was a farm. I looked at the history of it. There was a farm there, and then it turned into a golf course, and then it turned into mall. But this plant, not that this plant is like extremely rare or extremely special for some reason, but it might not really grow that much around here. I didn't find any active records of it growing in this area anymore. But if it was a golf course, there was probably more of a habitat for certain plants to grow. Yeah, he's from Frederick, Oklahoma. Here's another specimen I just took a photo of off the database. This is purple mustard. It's sandy soil, weed along Railroad, 3200 Northwest 19th Street, 1940, April 15th, 1940. So I was like, there's not a railroad. I know a lot about trains and stuff. There's not a railroad on 19th Street. Well, there's a street. I looked at Google Maps, there's a streetcar there. So that's what he meant. So now going into the work I've been doing. So within Oklahoma County, I'm focusing on 2 smaller sites to actually do like extensive research on. So one of the sites is the Deep Fork River here in Oklahoma City, Northwest Oklahoma City. I've been going to this place forever, like at least 20 years, just to like experience nature. And I love it down there. And I also call it Litter Creek because it's pretty covered in litter and trash, because it's just the drainage ditches that all connect, fill up that creek. Parts of it are still drainage ditches, and then it turns into a wild creek, like around, I don't know, east side of Oklahoma City. And then it flows into Lake Arcadia, and that's Edmond's drinking water. So right here, this is pretty close to where I've been doing most of my field work, which is behind Belle Isle Walmart. So we see lots of Walmart shopping carts. I don't know how many, there's many. And then up here, I call Ball Beach, because a lot of balls that end up in the drains somehow all end up here. Like at any given time, you're going to see a lot of varying size balls up there. So what does a plant survey consist of? For me, at least. So I'm documenting and photographing all plants during a 1-year period. So I have to go out there during the growing seasons, like once a week at least. And so this is I'm documenting. I'm using a way to basically compile all my work here. I'm using my so you can create a project and put all your photos in there, and that keeps track of all your locations and time and date and all that stuff, because you need all that stuff later on for all your work. So at this area includes forested areas, mowed areas, grasslands, streams, and a river, where my field work is. And this is my example of a highly disturbed urban green space. So I want to be able to compare that with a space within Oklahoma County that's not as disturbed. Okay, and it doesn't have much human disturbance, right? Disturbance isn't bad, but human disturbance is more bad. Right? So here's this blue outline is my like official study site. So here you have like Walmart at Belle Isle, which is just right over here, like a couple miles north of here. Old Navy, Shoe Carnival, Penn Square right here. And here's the Deep Fork River. And so basically this north side of the river, and then going into which is Rose Hill Burial Park, which has pretty amazing woods in it, right here. And then, you know, there's all sorts of vegetation and plants I've been documenting in that area. So here is a photo talking about land use change. This is from 1920, and this is when they dammed the river in 1905-ish, and to create a lake in order to cool the power plant that used to be there. So I don't know if y'all remember the Belle Isle power plant. I remember it. They exploded it, or they exploded it like in the 90s. So this lake is like human-made, right? There was a natural river coming through here. Well, then they got rid of the lake, turned it back into kind of a natural river in ways. And this is how it looks now. Well, in 2010. So, yeah, they still a little dam right here. It kind of turned more into a wild creek right here with people's backyards. And this is the study area I'm in. This is this woods, more of a forest right here. I'm going in. So just a pretty big contrast. But as much as changed in this area, nature is still nature. Like there's still so much to see. And like in that patch of woods, there's a waterfall. Like I doubt many humans have even been to this spot. I've been going there for years and never seen this. So it's pretty amazing. In that big patch of woods. Also on one of the streams, this is just, I just have some pictures now of some plants I see out there. Here's a common persimmon on another stream. So there's two streams in my study area that flow into Deep Fork. I'd seen persimmons in the coyotes poop for like a couple of years. I'm like, where are the persimmons at? Where are they going? And then it's like right there. I never saw this whole grove of persimmons that I walked by many times. But there's the flowers, these really cool little flowers. Here is sunflower, Maximilian sunflower, and there's a dollar bill wrapped around it. I found money down there multiple times. And one time I was down there and there was a guy fishing. And he goes, "Hey man, you ever found money down here?" I'm like, "Yeah, actually." It's like multiple times. It's weird. But I haven't added up all my plants here yet. I'm still like identifying them. But there's probably around 125 species within that blue zone. Something around there. So 125 different species of plants. And then like about nature, like this is right there. There's like pretty big group of coyotes that hang out. And there's a lot of animals, which is awesome. You see like fox. I've seen turkey and rattlesnake, and that was like when the sun was going down. Yeah. Yeah, they look really healthy right here. Yeah. My dog is trying to go after him. Talking about, I heard somebody said they're eating cats. Well, you know, they're eating all sorts of stuff because you see their food everywhere. And some people go there and feed them bread. There's an old man who goes there and feeds them bread. And they know when he's gonna show up. Because they're waiting for him. I've seen them like eating leather. Like I've just solid leather in their boots, like leather work gloves. Lots of vegetation, wild fruits, like persimmons and stuff. So they're doing their thing. I see like catering trays out there. Yeah, grasses, you know. But there's definitely more than 3. And there's like, I saw my first deer print out there in a long time. Because, there's a creek that's connecting there to the rest of the woods, That creek, that water goes all the way to Mississippi. So, goes to Lake Arcadia and then on. This is another plant. There's a really inconspicuous small plant I saw out there. Prairie bundleflower. I didn't know what it was. I was looking into it. The flowers are really small. But this is where like DMT is in the roots. It's a psychedelic. I was like, that's weird. And they call it prairie ayahuasca. And supposedly it has to be mixed with passion flower, something of that. I don't know. Yeah. But the actual real DMT that people do use comes from its like a close relative to this plant, right? That you can get more of the compound out of it. Well, that's my plant survey work in a nutshell. Okay, and now my other study site is Arcadia Lake. So the reason I picked Arcadia Lake is because it represents more of a place that has less human disturbance for Oklahoma County. It's really beautiful, and like with the hopes that maybe because it's under threat of a lot of development, and hopefully my work can help save things. Because you can't just go to a developer or go to a government meeting or go to a government agency and be like, this place is just cool. Like, you have to have, or you can't be like, there's so much biodiversity there. You have to have some numbers and something to tell them. Because this is not going to make sense for them. And so that's what I'm working on in both of these places. And Arcadia, the field work there is like way more extensive. So I was doing a floristic inventory. I'm going to go over that process in a second. But I was going up there. There are spots at Arcadia where you feel like you're just completely in the wilderness. No humans, like this. Like this is like, and there's multiple places like that. I found a plant here, I'll show you in a minute, that's has never been documented in Oklahoma County or even the counties around it. This little wetland area. So yeah, floristic inventory. Some people have been taking a botany class, maybe you've done small amounts of these, or maybe some of y'all have done floristic inventory before. My advisor, Dr. Ryber, in undergrad. But so vouchered specimens of all documented plant species in a region are designated boundary, Carlson and herbarium. So a plant voucher is like the herbarium sheet that you press the plant and put it on. And you need to be there for a year. You need to be there for the whole year cycle and see all the plants that are there, right? You're never probably going to collect every single different plant, but that's your goal. Most of them. And so floristic inventories, house and herbarium, and herbaria are typically at universities, although a lot of universities now are slowly getting rid of them because botany programs are kind of struggling in some places. But there's like an archive, like sometimes millions, thousands of herbarium vouchers of all the plants people that maybe are at that university have been collecting and studying. And now those then herbarium sheets are shared all around the world. Like if somebody's studying a certain plant, and they don't, maybe the plant's extinct, or maybe they can't get access to it, or they want to see different types of it, they'll contact different universities or places and have them be shipped, and they'll study those. They can get genetic material from them. A lot of the times the plant has to be flowering to collect it. You can't really identify a plant very well in a lot of cases unless you have a flower, right? Because like leaves kind of all look, sometimes they can really look similar. You see some leaves on the ground. What is that? I have no idea. But you see the flower, that can really help you. This is just like this weird backpack I found. It's like a bucket also. Idea is I can sit on it and not sit on the ground and get covered in ticks. But sometimes I'll use this bucket to fill with plants. Sometimes I have a bag. Just throwing plants in there. And so, and then pretty quickly you're going to need to press these plants. And that's the plant press. And yeah. So here is my study area, north side of Arcadia. Basically just this whole north side. And I'm basically walking a transect, which is just the same trail every time. I'll go off the trail, so I want to get as much plants I can find. But I'm going there once a week. The hardest part about this experience was the picks. The picks were horrible. bringing them in the car, and they're in the car for a week or something, or trying to find. I Googled tick suit, and I found a company called Tick Suit, and it was amazing. It's just like a Tyvek all white suit, but it really helps control the ticks. So I like wrap it up and put it in a bag, in my shoes. After I did my work out there. So yeah, the floristic inventory process. So here's me harvesting a rough cocklebur and Xanthium strumarium. You want to get the roots, you want to get the flowers or the fruits. This is a plant, or one of the plants closely related to this, that where Velcro comes from. Like where people, the guy discovered, like, oh, because the fruits or the seeds, they have that, they stick to dogs or plants really well. And what's going on with this? So he looked at a microscope and saw the barbs and that stuff. And they made Velcro. He created the word Velcro based on those. And then, so collect the specimen of each plant, press the plant, dry the plant. We have big dryers in colleges usually. Then you had to identify the plant with your local flora, which Oklahoma has a flora, which is a key. Big thick key is supposed to have every plant in it and how to identify that plant using a dichotomous key, which just asks you like a question and then you go on to the next question until you figure out what the plant is. And then you mount the plant on archive paper with the herbarium label. And then you got to freeze it really good to make sure no bugs are in it. It could destroy other plants in the herbarium. And then you put it in the herbarium. You ever take it out of the herbarium and freeze it again. Anybody have any questions? Oh, Q&A, lost 15 minutes, but this is just me trying to organize my plants. This is just like a small fraction of my plants from Arcadia. They're dried. I'm just putting them kind of in the order that I got them in, because I have like a field notebook that's in the right order. So when I'm identifying them, I gotta put notes in there, and make sure it's organized correctly. So this is like a general setup that I have for keying plants out. You really need a microscope, especially for certain plant families. The Flora of Oklahoma County system, it's now a free PDF, where it's donation based. The new edition just came out. So yeah, this dissecting microscope is crucial. Computer is really nice to have. Tweezers, ruler, and the best, really, this is the way to really learn plants, is you really need to pick them because there's so many, and key them out and go through that process. And it can be really rewarding. You don't need much to do it. You can use you don't need a microscope or like that. That can help. But learning the common plant families is like crucial to breaking down this key. Because if you know something is a mint, well, you can narrow like 2,665 plants down to, I don't know how many mint plants, but maybe like 100 in the state. So you can go to that section of the mint, and that's a simple family to remember. They have square stems, opposite leaves, a couple other things. So, and then the AI on iNaturalist actually is like surprisingly very, very accurate, even for the really hard. I can't believe it. So I use that, but then I still go into key because if I use that and just that, I won't really learn anything. I need to go through the key and learn the language associated with that plant family, because all these plant groups like have their own vocab. A lot of them do. It's like extremely hard. Sometimes it doesn't. You look the vocab word up, you can't even find a definition of it online or in your plant botany dictionaries you have. So it can be really confusing. But a lot of that vocab is used in the medical world. It's just Latin. Yeah. This is just some random photos I took through the microscope of like harder plants to identify. Especially like plant families. Common spike rush. The rush, so like probably with this one, I was looking at this seed and probably having to measure these things, whatever those are called in that plant family, or something, or looking at the tip of that on all the ridges or whatever it's asking you for. This is yellow nutsedge, common plant, Cypress esculentus. That's a plant that I guess various countries make horchata from commonly. From what I've read, it's cultivated. It's a good drink. I like writing stuff down. I like making lists of plants. a lot of botanists like making lists. And so I have like kind of like if you like a bird or have a life list or something, I think it's called. I also have like a big book where and when I collect a plant and I identify it, then I write down all this information under the family. So this is the Euphorbiaceae family. And these are some of the plants that I've collected. And it has just like pertinent information, like the collection number. This will be a gap right here for the ascension number. That would be like when it gets housed in an actual herbarium. It'll get a number for that herbarium. This is like a number for that field work. I actually like that's my number, my field collection for that project. Day, county, latitude and longitude, and then common name. So yeah, I love looking at the old botanist handwriting. And it's really fun because they hand wrote everything. Just some random pictures. I posted this one. This is Atlantic poison oak from Lake Arcadia. I didn't really know much about this plant, but the flowers are pretty interesting, and they're also really small because you have to collect the plants when they flower. And I don't always collect every plant. If there's a plant I only see one of, or two of, or three of, I'm probably not going to collect it out there because even if it's a common plant in some other parts of the state, it needs a seed out there and grow more of them. But like I don't have an official number, but like the number of species I've collected in that north side is probably around 280. It seems like in this latitude, that's like a common amount of plants that people find when they do these inventories in similar sized areas, somewhere around 300 plants. Here is a plant. Anybody know what plant family this is? Nope. It's about the umbels.
Oh.
Yeah, the carrot family. So this plant I got in Arcadia's, and sometimes I think I don't really very familiar with plants. I'll look them up on these databases and see if how many people collected that plant or how many times it's been observed on iNaturalist. This plant had never been observed in the county. It's called white nymph, and this is the only plant in its genus in the whole world. Kind of interesting. It has these weird, like this is the ovary of each flower. And that's kind of unusual looking. These little tiny flowers, and these are called compound umbels. So and the umbel just means umbrella. And that's a distinctive characteristic of the carrot family. So you see an umbel, like an umbrella, all these the stems of the flowers, the peduncles, or is that? Yeah. I think coming out and then forming another umbel is compound umbels. Okay. So it might not be like an extremely rare plant, but it's kind of cool to find these plants that haven't been documented here. And then document them. So here, this was that plant. I just screenshot it. When I put it in the portal, the database, these are all the collections that people have made of this plant. So all over the state. I don't know, maybe 30 or something, ranging back probably to like the early 1900s. And this kind of makes sense, but this is an area where it's really beautiful. People are going to want to go there and look at plants and collect them and stuff. East side of the state. This is, if there's one plant to learn, I think it's this plant. And this is everywhere in Oklahoma County. Everywhere. This is poison hemlock, Tonia maculatum. And it's the second most poisonous plant in North America. So you do not want to play with this plant. I've heard of people even getting sick from like ripping them out of the ground and stuff. But it really does look like a lot of plants in the carrot family, which makes it even more dangerous. Knowing the Latin of plants can actually, it kind of helps you, kind of learn about the plant. Like this plant, maculatum. Can anybody guess what maculatum means? I don't know. We all know it. I think everyone knows it inherently in them somewhere. Like, so immaculate means like something's like perfect, right? Maculate means something's imperfect. And so this plant has like these purple splotches all over the stem. You can't see it in these photos, but that's why somebody named it maculatum. I don't know what conium means, but yeah. So if you know this plant and the first most poisonous plant, well, then you're pretty safe in a lot of ways, foraging, relatively. Like you don't want to mess with that. The first most poisonous plant that I'm aware of is water hemlock, which grows here. I haven't seen it around Oklahoma County, but it might be here. It's similar looking to this. But I've seen like in Sulphur on the river. This is another plant, Dr. Acadia. It's not like a super rare special plant, but it also has never been documented here in this county. And partially probably because it's just so, it doesn't look like much. It looks kind of like grass. So this is annual novel Scleranthus anus Caryophyllese. And yeah, it's just a really inconspicuous. This is like in the campground in our cave. I was like, what is this? This is so weird looking. Okay, so so now I have, once I have all this data collected, I need to do something with it. And I was like, basically forced by my advisor, like, you can't just do inventories anymore. I was like, maybe in the 60s or 70s, you could do that with in a master's program or a doctorate program. But nowadays, you got to do something with that data and add something more to it. So this is where the Floristic Quality Assessment comes in. And I think this is a really cool metric. It's a pretty simple math equation. It's just averaging, pretty much. It was created by Dr. Gerald Wilhelm, who I emailed him and he gave me his number and I called him like that day. And he talked for like 2 hours about this process. And he has a bunch of, like, he's around, he's still like really active. But in the 70s, he was in basic training and he thought he was going to be sent to Vietnam. But he had a biology degree. And so somebody, the sergeant came to him and was like, you must know somebody because you're out. Like, you're going to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Waterways Experiment Station in Mississippi. And he was just like so confused. He's like, okay, that means I'm not going to Vietnam. Okay, that's interesting. He wasn't necessarily like a plant scientist. But when he got there, he was tasked with studying the ecology of the Illinois River, where they were about to change it from a 9-foot channel to a 12-foot channel. And they were like, hey, your job is to study the ecology of 50 potential sites that we're going to dump all this like sludge on. And we want to know what sites we can spoil. And so he was like, I don't know anything about this. Like, I don't know what to do. So he went there and met up with a really, really amazing botanist there that's not alive anymore named Floyd Sweet. They went to all these sites and decided which sites. They basically found one site that was actually like had like really amazing native plants and was a remnant of what the area used to be like. And we should protect this site. And so that was the starting of his career in botany. So then Dr. Wilhelm, went back and I guess they figured out where, what sites to spoil, basically, like the word they used. Later on, like I think like 76 or something, he wrote a paper with Sweet about this process. He kind of inspired him to make this metric for determining areas to protect and had given them a number value. Okay. So Floristic Quality Assessment is a metric for assessing and evaluating natural areas. Uses plant species in a given area to measure its quality, forest quality. It's commonly used to guide ecological policy, regulation, conservation, management, research. But not so much in Oklahoma. It hasn't really been used here, but like a lot of eastern states use it. The government, EPA, all these agencies use it. And then plants are weighted based on the breadth of their response to ecological and anthropogenic stresses. So humans cause stressors to the environment. So I'll go kind of explain that more in a second. So the FK is based on concept of species conservatism. So it's a degree to which a species can tolerate human disturbance and its degree of preference for a given association. And so a given association means like, did that plant co-evolve for a very, very long time with a very specific other organisms to survive? So like it could be like another pollinator. Like it has to have a certain ant, this plant does, in order to have its seeds spread. There's like, if you don't have that ant, or if you put a road through the middle of the habitat, that ant can now not cross that road. It just physically can't. Well, that plant can't really survive anymore because it's not having like gene flow. Doesn't have habitat to spread, Or it could be like mycorrhizae, like a fungi association, or a disturbance, like fire that it needs to have, or clean water. You know, a lot of plants need that. But like here, paintbrush species here, it's hemiparasitic, so it needs certain other plants to get its nutrients from. It's parasitic on other plants. It also photosynthesizes too. It also gets some of its own nutrients. Jack pine, I don't think that's here, but that's an interesting one. You know, it needs fire for its home zone. And then furthermore, this bird, the jack pine warbler, was almost extinct because fires weren't happening anymore, like Wisconsin. And that bird needs jack pine trees that are between 6 and 22 years old. So they had to start creating young jack pine in order for that bird to survive and build its nest. So there's just all these things related. And non-native species don't typically have many associations they need. They can just overrun an area. So if an area gets bulldozed and the soil is compacted and there's no topography and there's no shade and no water, all these things, these plants can just come in. They don't have much competition. They don't need certain animals or bugs or whatever. But so the FQA methodology, so the weighting factor for what's called C value. So you assign a C value to each plant, and it's from 0 to 10. So a 0 would mean the plant is a non-native plant, and it has no needed association with other organisms. And then 10 would mean it's like the most sensitive plant, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean it's like extremely rare or endangered. It could be, but it's the most sensitive to human disturbance, right? The 10s are. So in any given place, you're going to have a combination of 0s and 10s. And those numbers are assigned by a group of botanists for that region. Because different C values can change for different areas. Plants can have different sensitivities. And so Dr. Bruce Hoagland at OU has C values for most of the plants here. That he hasn't ever published or anything, but I got the document. I'm going to go back through it and see if it looks maybe changed and stuff, what I've noticed. Yeah, so like if you do an FQA, an assessment on an area, and the area has an FQA of 2, so you add up all the C values, you have to know all the plants for the whole year, then you add them all up, you average them. And there's other metrics you can do with these numbers too. And then that number tells you how good the quality this place is. So if it has a 2, maybe it's not so good. But if it has a 5, that means it's really good. So the 5 would be, because there's going to be a range from 0s to 10s. So the 5 means there's lots of plants that are like in the 7s, 8s, and stuff like that. So that's what I'll be doing with these 2 sites to compare them within the county. I'll be doing FQAs of both of them once I get out all my data on spreadsheets and stuff. So just an example. Here is a photo I took in February, and this is where that lake used to be. This is probably Bermuda grass. The C value is going to be 0. This is a photo taken in 1950. It's almost, I think, the same spot, relatively. And you can see right here, so they're building that highway, I-44, and the lake is still right there. And I don't know where the natural river would have been necessarily. I don't know how it could document of that. But the C value is 4 of this plant right here, which is buttonbush, Cephalanthus occidentalis. So it's just right there. It's like, oh, you know, at that point, there was still disturbance, lots of disturbance, but it was more of a natural area. It would have had a higher C value overall with the plants there. Because this is going to definitely be a 0. Maybe you could find something in there over the course of a year. No. And here. So yeah, the primary reasons that FQA is so popular is it's simple and easy to use. Its ability to quantify and distill years of technical knowledge and field experience into an objectively applied number. And it's flexible in a variety of uses, its effectiveness, accurately measures what it purports to, and its uniqueness. It measures ecological information that's not captured by other ecological metrics. A lot of other metrics just kind of measure like abundance of certain things. It's from a paper by Greg Spirius. So yeah, like the significance of this project is I hope it adds to conservation in this county. I hope the FQA can expand in Oklahoma and be used more. It's gonna take a lot more work because you have to do surveys in these places, know it's there. You also have to have the seed values, all those plants. Yeah, and so then improving land use management, tracking ecological change throughout Oklahoma County, some botany education resources, and updating the flora and Oklahoma. Well, this is called Porch now. The Oklahoma Basket Plant database isn't there. So yeah, updating the local database. Yeah, and this is a photo. I think I had an early, I don't know, I thought I had an early photo of this early, but this is near, yeah. Yeah, right. This is a, do you guys recognize what this is? Yeah, I recognize what car it is. It's a Range Rover. Yeah, yeah, there's a Range Rover on the creek right. This is right here, and it's been there as long as I've been going there. And there's like a tree growing through it, all these plants. Yeah, so there's just interesting things you can find in the green spaces around here. And it's kind of fascinating, kind of depressing. But you find all sorts of weird stuff. And this is on the creek that goes through, this is a tributary to the Deep Fork. This is the one that goes through Edgemere Park. And this is like right before it gets to Deep Fork River. Yeah. So, do I have any more slides? Yeah, that's it. So, do you guys have any questions or thoughts or comments? Thank you guys for coming out. No.
What is the place of the Oklahoma vascular plant database?
Well, I think Porch called like it, and that stands for that's an acronym. Is it? Do you know what that stands for?
Texas. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah. No, it's Texas Oklahoma Regional Consortium of Herbaria. Yeah. So people they've gotten grants. Oklahoma's one of the last places to get these grants. But they've digitized all these herbaria in various universities. And now you get this one place called Porch, which is just a website. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is their website similar to the
Basket plant? Yeah, it's a little better.
It's superior.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it wasn't the.
Yeah, you can type in like.
Plant database will give you label information, maybe where it's located, but it won't show you the actual image of the specimen.
Yeah.
Torch actually has a digitized image of the specimen.
Yeah, so like how I found that plant that was in Shepherd Golf Course, there's like all these different settings on that website. I clicked like I just looked at Google, they have everything on Google Maps too, like dots. So I just zoomed into this area right here. I saw a dot like right next to here. I clicked on it and then it showed me that herbarium specimen from 1940 or whatever it was. But you can also search like a collector's name, like so some botanist's name, see what they collected in this region. You can search by county, state, plant, and see all the, how many dandelions have been collected? Put that in there and see like so many. But even dandelions, like you learn, like I keyed out everything. So when I keyed out a dandelion, I was like, oh my gosh, I was blown away. There's 2 dandelions here, and I can't tell them apart. And probably most people can't. They're 2 totally different species. And I've like researched like, how do I tell? It's been like really difficult. I mean, you have to like take it apart, look at the seeds and all this stuff. And there's all this variation that doesn't make sense to me, even in that one. So that one like came to me like every time you key a plant out, you're like, whoa. Yeah.
I know I asked you this about 3 years ago, but in the last 3 years, has anybody published a wild edible plant identification guide for Oklahoma?
Oh, no, I mean, some of you might know. I mean, I feel like there's like people that kind of self-publish ones and like put them on Amazon or different websites. And I don't think I've really seen some of those. I've seen like some self-published ones.
This is a Kansas guy.
Kelly Kingston?
Yeah. Yeah, he's got edible plants in the prairie.
Okay.
Yeah, but is that recent? The only one I have is like that Kansas
it's
edible plants in the prairie or something.
Right.
I've had it 30 years.
Does anybody teach a course in that locally here?
Mhm.
Yeah, there are a couple like informal groups that do it, because I'm part of a couple of those groups, but it's
Yeah,
not.
there's
it's
like
not
there was a
formal.
person named Jackie, Jill.
Jill.
Yeah, Dill, who was doing like wild animal workshop, they're really cool, and she passed away.
How
Yeah,
do you spell it in?
it's Jackie, Jackie. Dill. Yeah, Dill. Yeah, I don't think I think she's over the website.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, but like Sam Thayer, he's like the main wild edibles guy, and he's in Wisconsin. His plant walks, I've been on a couple of his plant walks, they're awesome. He's crazy. He wears like gym shorts and he's just like, he runs. And he'll just run in the water and like swim across it, you know. Yeah, his books are, he says he'll describe it as a plant and then like what state it's in. And how like a map of it, so. Yeah.
I have a question about the metric. As far as finding like the averages for like, like create a metric for conserving area, is the amount of a specific plant affect the average? So if there's like a whole bunch of one plant that's got like
Yeah.
9, as opposed to like just finding
Yeah.
1, 0.
Yeah, that's a good question. So like abundance, that abundance doesn't factor into this metric. Because abundance is really hard to like this to figure out. You have to like go there and like try to figure out how many plants of this one species are out here. So yeah, it doesn't really factor that in. There's other metrics that you can do that with that. Because that's important. Like you could have like like that affects the biodiversity. Because you could have like really not a biodiverse place, but people might say it's diverse, there's like, these couple just remaining plants surviving or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if the conditions are right, typically those plants will do all right there, but
Hi, Mike.
what's the thanks.
I'm wondering, as you're getting closer to arriving at this number, if you have any guesses about the outcome
Yeah.
as far as how it compares to other places,
Yeah.
the disturbed versus less disturbed area.
Yeah. Like I think I'm just like guessing like Litter Creek, the area I'm doing like maybe a 2. And then like Arcadia is maybe gonna be like a 4. I have no idea. Maybe a 4. Something. But like there is like kind of like a movement of people doing like urban ecology. And like I don't know much about it. It'd be cool to find there if anybody's out doing like FQA, but all you need is somebody who's done a survey and then you can just plug all that into the FQA calculator. And that's really quick. If it's a recent survey.
But then like, how will you use that number? 2.5? What will-
I'll just say this is a 2 and this is a 4.
Like for your goals around conservation.
Yeah,
and all
so
that.
like Lake Arcadia is like putting out a call out like, hey, we want public input because we want to do some developments here, and they already are. They're like, we want to get like do like all these different things and put Wi-Fi things here and put arcade here or something, like. And so we're looking for input, and so that's a place you come and be like, here's the list of plants here. These plants are special because you don't see them anywhere. Like a lot of these plants, you're not seeing them anywhere else in the county. And Oklahoma County needs places like this because this is where most people are in Oklahoma. And so people aren't going to want to travel to the Ouachita. They're going to go to these places. And so they need to be able to go outside and see these cool plants and have some biodiverse places. Yeah, so it's really important to try to get these places. They're the most utilized, they're the most accessible. So, yeah. But yeah, just publishing the numbers and publishing the plant list, and then say this is, that's basically it. I don't really know. I haven't really put too much out like where I'm gonna take it or like, but like, yeah. After that, but it'll be published in like June. Yeah.
So are these kinds of assessments mostly done for wild areas? I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
somebody did an assessment like that for their yard after they,
Yeah. You can. I mean, I think about it all the time now that like I think about like the numbers that would be in my yard or something. Just because I'm on that mindset. I'm like, oh, this place oh, this is hurting, like it's a one. Like, and the thing is, like, with like what these, the guy who developed this, he'll tell you that like, these places, you can almost never, he claims you can't really go up in numbers. So like, you can kind of do some restoration, but like, once a place is degraded, once a remnant is degraded so much, it's really hard, or he says it's pretty much impossible to bring it back to what it was. You know, so the places that still have these higher numbers, like we just need to protect them. Maybe do some measures, but you can't like, yeah, like how do you reach, like for instance, that guy, he was a suburban Chicago, and he, somebody asked him in the podcast, he was like, well, what do you think of the rarest plants? He's like, you know, what about all these rare plants in Chicago? He's like, I don't think like that. I think more about like burning my yard for 100 years to get it back to where it was, natural prairie. And he's burning his yard every year. Yeah. I guess it's a really sweet yard. But yeah, he's doing controlled burns there. So the normal years. I don't know. I think like many years.
How
Yeah.
do you get a permit for that?
Like he contacted whoever, like, I don't know, fire department or something.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah. 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 So like, because that's what is going to create the conditions for those plants to come back. Because that's what those conditions were. Was fire regiment like that. Yeah.
Just last month, I read about, a survey that was done on the Hudson River in New York that converted it. So this is a new area that's opening up for conservation in a lot of areas. It was, I can't tell you a whole lot. I think it's pretty, but they were hurt by the fact that they weren't the same species, that there were a lot more species than they thought would be.
Mhm.
So the species changed, certainly. It wasn't as big popular as I thought it was doing.
Yeah.
So we're finding some kind of interesting things.
Yeah. And what is it? What's the organization? Blue something Oklahoma. Yeah, Blue Thumb. They do invertebrate studies. They do workshops. I check their website. It's the coolest. When I did my first invertebrate study, I was blown away. Seeing these organisms that were in these waterways.
It's very nice. For example, if the area has a lot of planted sea, it's and maybe higher, will that area be protected?
Well, if they can get some kind of status for it, like,